Welcome to Fusion. If you haven't already set up an account for yourself, you're going to need to set up an account before you get going. You can just choose Create Account, follow the instructions. Once you've got your account, you're going to go ahead and get started by logging in. All of your files are kept on the cloud, and these files will be available to you when you're at home. And it doesn't matter what computer you're using. If it's got Fusion on it and access to the internet, you can connect. But it's very important that at the end of every session, you go up to the right-hand corner where your login is and choose Sign Out so that other people don't have your files coming up on their screen. They can delete them, change them, or just, mess with your stuff. You don't want that happening. When you come in, it's automatically going to open the data panel. The button up here on the far left with 9 squares opens the data panel and shows you your existing files. I've got lots of files here, but I'm just using this new folder so it looks a little bit more like yours. To close up the data panel, just hit the X. Again, just back and forth with the X, and that's going to save it out to the cloud. The space that you're looking at right here is called the canvas, and our canvas is currently empty. We are modeling. There are other options for working with sheet metal, and doing the animation is like making parts move, not, making animated movies. Patch lets you do sculpture, but all we care about today and for the immediate future is modeling. Modeling is taking a 2D drawing and making it into a 3D object. Everything starts with a sketch normally, a 2D sketch, and a sketch can be a line, it can be circles, it can be a series of points that are joined together. We have all kinds of stuff we can do with it, and we'll work with those in a minute. On the Create menu, it'll allow you to extrude. That's going to take a flat object and make it three-dimensional. We can use Revolve to make an object that was in a flat format and then make it into a complete 360-degree object. These primitives right here, box, cylinder, sphere, torus, coil, these are objects that people want to use on a regular basis that you can just click on box and it's going to make you a box. On the Modify menu, we've got various options. We have this Press, Pull, and next door we have under Create, Extrude. These are essentially the same thing. Press, Pull just is another name for Extrude. We're going to skip these menus here that we don't use for right now and head over to Make. Under Make, we have 3D Print. That's the only one we're going to use on there. That's what creates the actual STL file that'll allow us to send the file to the 3D printer and have something come out that actually looks like what you were looking at on the screen. On the left-hand side over here, we've got our document menu that'll allow us to see what's going on in this browser. Under document settings, the primary thing we have is units. My units are set to inches, and if you want to change from inches to millimeters or centimeters, if you're doing something big, feet or meters, it's a good idea to work in millimeters. That's what the scientific and engineering world uses, because most people are used to inches. Right now, our first little project is going to use inches. If it says millimeters, change it to inches and click OK. Our name views, top, bottom, front, right, those are also indicated up here on our rotator cube. We've got top, back, and so forth. If you hit the house, that takes you back to home and an orthogonal view. If you click on the triangle next to origin, this is going to allow us to see the various axes on the screen. You'll notice origin doesn't have the light bulb on. Click on the light bulb and we can now see our axes. This one is the XZ. This one back here is going to be, oops, I'm trying to get to one at a time. This is our Z-axis, our X, and the green one there is the Y. You can see over here as you click on each one, it'll show you which one it is. We have 2 vertical axes and 1 horizontal. Okay. So those are your basics on getting around. To get a new drawing, if you want to start over, you can just go to New Design, and you get your Save and your Save As. Those are things you're used to. Up at the top, you've got Undo and Redo. as you go. Let's start just real quick with a primitive. Let's choose create a box. First thing we need to do is click where we want the box, and I want the box on this XY plane. So I'm going to click on the flat plane, and I'm going to drag to make the box whatever size I want. And then I can grab the blue arrow and drag it up, click on OK, and I've made my first solid. If I want to turn off the axes, I can just click on the origin light bulb, and I now have my cube. If I click on the house, you can see that it's going to take you to the home position. I can press and hold on the cube at the top, and it will rotate. If I go down to the bottom of my screen, my little menu here has orbit. If I click on orbit again, I can rotate. To stop orbiting, simply press the escape key. If I use the hand, that's going to pan. It'll allow me to move around on the screen. If you use your rolling mouse button, the rolling mouse button in the middle will zoom in and out. And if you're coordinated, and I'm not always coordinated, you can press and hold the rolling button, and that's going to get you to orbit. And sometimes I get that zoom in and zoom out instead. When you let go, it turns off. If you use the button here, you have to turn it off yourself by hitting the escape key. To get back home, just hit the home button, zoom in, zoom out using your rolling mouse button. Okay, this is a primitive. This is just an object that we created. This is a face. If I want to select the whole object, I can select the entire object. And right now, I have one body. If I click on the sketch object, sketch menu, I can choose circle, and I'm going to choose center circle diameter. I'm going to start with a circle on my square. I'm going to drag to make the diameter. If I want the diameter to be 1/2 inch, I can actually just type 0.5 and hit enter, and that will make a 1/2 inch circle instead. If I click on that circle, I can now press my right mouse button, and I can go to extrude. And extrude simply refers to adding or removing material. If I go down, you'll see that it now says cut. So I've cut -70 inches into this cube. If I go up, by default it does a join, and now I have a little stack coming out. If I go all the way through, I now have a cube with a hole all the way through it. Okay, so those are my basics on getting around. So I'm going to hit the X to get out of Untitled, and I'm going to cancel out of that, and I have a new blank canvas ready to go. You can also go to New Design, and it'll give you the same Untitled canvas. When you're getting ready to leave, make sure that you choose to sign out. And that's your basics on getting around. Next thing we're going to do is create our key tag. To create our key tag, we're going to start with a sketch that's a rectangle, and we want a 2-point rectangle, and we're going to do it on this XY flat axis. Now, if we start at the origin, the 0 point, it's going to be tidier while we're working. And my rectangle, I'm going to click and drag, and I want my rectangle to be 2.5 inches wide. And if I press the tab key, the dimensioner will move to the vertical dimension, and I want it to be 1.25 inches. Once I've got those two dimensions in, I can simply press the enter key, and I now have my first sketch. If you go over here to my browser, you can see that's my sketch. If I click on it, it'll actually change color. If I click on the light bulb, my sketch will disappear. Click on my light bulb, it's back again. Sometimes it's easier to make things disappear while you're working so that you can have access to the object you want. I'm going to zoom in on this by simply rolling my mouse button towards me. If I need to pick it up and move it, I can use the hand. And it shows me here I'm 125 by 250. If you have the wrong number, simply go over to the dimension line And if you double click on it, you can change the dimension to whatever it is you want, and it'll update automatically. To make the round corners on our key tag, I'm going to go back to Sketch, and I'm going to choose Fillet. Under the Sketch, we have Fillet, and under Create, under Modify, we have Fillet. Notice the fillet here is going to be rounding the edge of a solid object. Under Sketch, Fillet is going to be rounding the corners of a two-dimensional or sketch object. So I'm going to click on one side and then the other, and it's going to fill in my fillet for me, and 0.03 inches looks good to me. Now, before I press enter, I'm going to go over to my next corner and choose the same thing. Notice it remembers the 0.30 and that one and my fourth. Once I've gotten all four, I can hit the enter key, and I now have nice rounded corners, all exactly the same for my key tag. Now, currently the object is flat. If I rotate, you can see that it's flat as a pancake. And what we need to do is make our key tag thicker. We want it to be 0.1 inches thick. So if I click on it, right mouse, I can choose Extrude from the menu right here. I'm going to choose Extrude, and I can click on the drop down and see if I have a choice already in there. I don't. I know I want 0.10 inches, so I'm going to choose 0.10. It'll ask me what we want to do. We want to make a new body, and I'm going to click on OK. And I now have a key tag that's 0.10 wide. If I want to check and see how wide it is, I can go to Inspect, and I can click on the top, on the bottom, and it's going to tell me over here that it is 0.10 inches if I need to find out how big something is. Let's flip our key tag back to the front and flip to the top view. Now the key tag is all set, but what we need to do is have a nice indent around the outside. So to do that, I'm going to use an option on the Sketch menu called Offset. If I choose the Offset, and then I come out on my object, it tells you to select the curves, and I'm going to choose this one curve. Because it says chain selection, it's going to automatically go all the way around. Now my offset position here is going outward. I actually want to go inward because I want the solid edge to go in a little bit, and I actually want it to be 0.055, and that's minus 0.055. Once I've got that set, you'll see that if I move my mouse to the inside, this is the inner area and the outer area. They're both at the same level, but I have two sort of zones defined. I'm going to go to the outside area. It turns blue when I click on it. I'm going to click on the right mouse button, and I'm going to extrude that outside part an extra 0.05. It went to 0.1, and I want 0.05. A lot of the commonly used numbers will come up on the drop-down button. When I click on OK or hit Enter, I now have the basic format of my key tag. It's always a good idea at any point during the process to save what you're doing. If you go up to the disk to save, I'm going to say basic key tag, and now I won't lose what I've done. Once I've got that set, I need to drill the hole here to put the key tag through. So to do that, on my Create menu, I can create additional solids. Modify lets you take a solid and change it around. We can make a modification to it. I can combine multiple pieces together. I can split pieces up. But what I'm looking for is I want to make a hole. If I come over to Create, this is all two-dimensional objects, and I should have a hole on Create. So I'm going to hit Create Hole, and we want one hole. it says select the face, so I'm going to select the face where I want my hole. My hole is simple. Right now it's just a hole. With my hole, I want the depth to be thicker than the object itself. So I'm just going to pick a big number. I don't remember how thick my object is. It's actually 0.10, but we'll just make it thicker. We're going to just drill as far as we want to into it. And now we're going to position the hole, and I'm going to position it basically on top of the radius of the center of the circle there. I think that'll put it in a good spot. Click on OK, and I now should see that on either side I have a hole in my key tag so that I can put the extra little key ring on there and do something productive with it. Last thing we want to do is put something on our key tag. Now, because we're doing this as a practice, we're going to just use text on the keychain, on the key tag for right now. You can get fancy, do all kinds of stuff. It doesn't have to be a rectangle, but ours is a rectangle today. If I go to the text option, I'm going to come out on the screen and it says select a plane or planar face. I want to click on the main body of the tag because that's where I want the text to be in line with. I'm going to go up above the screen though and type up here. So when I click, I'm going to type whatever it is I happen to want for my key tag. So I'm going to type OCHS because I don't know what else to type. And it's upside down and backwards. The fastest way to fix it is use the horizontal and the vertical flips. And if you grab that blue circle, it'll move it back down onto the screen. The size isn't quite big enough. I don't have a very many words, so I can make it 0.7 works for me. If you're doing more letters, you'll have to make it smaller. I also need to specify the font. Arial's pretty boring, but it does work. Fonts that are simple are going to be much better. This is not going to come out as a good font. When you print it, it just doesn't come out. Things with lots of curly cues just tend to not come out very well unless the writing is very large. Something like Park Avenue or Parchment are also going to be bad because there's all kinds of tiny thin letters. So you want something that's pretty beefy for your object. It's going to just print better and you're not going to be disappointed when it comes out. So I ended up with Sego semi-bold. Here it is. Happy enough with that. And I'm going to click OK. Now, again, this is a sketch. Up here, I've got my body. If I click on the light bulb for body, it's going to turn off the body and just show me the sketch. Click, turn it back on. This is a sketch because I've just got a 2D letter. If I right click on it, I should be able to choose press pull. And when I choose press pull, I should be able to, if I turn it just a little bit, I can see, here's the puller. If I go this way, it's going to cut holes in there. If I have a letter like an O, that's not going to work because there's nothing to hold on to the center of the O. If I come this way, instead of cutting, it will actually join and go the other direction. You'll see here it says join instead. Now I only want this to be 0.05. I don't want it to be real tall. I want it to be the same height as the outside here. When I click on OK, I should now see that my letters are standing tall and I'm ready to print it. Now, down here at the bottom of the screen, this is our history. We can go backwards. For example, if your hole is the wrong size, simply find hole on the history, double click, and it'll take us back to the hole options. It'll show us that's 0.5 depth, 0.2 in diameter. If I say wanted to make that 0.25, I can change it right there. And now it's a lot bigger. It's too big. Notice my text was still there. So you can go back to my 0.20. And once I go forward again, everything's there. and all my text is in 2 dimensions. If you flip it to the back side, it should be flat. If you've got letters coming through, you got a problem. Alrighty, let's go back to home, and I'm going to save it by just clicking save. Notice it says description. This might be the version description might be added text or something like that that will allow us to let us know different phases of this. Instead of saving an object with 25 different names, save as, save as, save as, this program actually keeps track of your revisions. Once you feel good about what you got, then you're going to actually make the 3D file. We're going to stop here until you're all set, and then we'll get to the actual printing. Stop what you've got now, try this out, get your file going. Remember, over here on our data panel, you can see your objects, and I have 2 revisions. If I click here, it says this is my added text and my item was created. So that's right there if we need it. Okay. When you're done and you have it all saved and you're ready to create your file, go to the next step on the video.